September 1946. A Columbia University student walks to church and never arrives. Within 7 days, 12 men would pay the ultimate price. This is the story of how one act of hatred triggered a response so calculated, so complete, that it would change Harlem forever. But here's the question we need to ask. When the system designed to protect you calls murder a suicide, what happens next? I'm going to tell you about Thomas Johnson, Bumpy Johnson, and the week that made the KKK abandon Harlem for good. But first, hit that subscribe button. This story isn't in your history books, and you need to hear it. Marcus Garvey Park, Sunday morning, September 15, 1946. An elderly woman walking her dog sees something hanging from an oak tree near the north entrance. At first, she thinks it's laundry caught in the branches. Then she gets closer. By 6:47 a.m., NYPD Detective Robert Walsh is standing under that tree, looking at something that makes his 20 years on the force feel meaningless. A young black man, maybe 19 or 20, hanging from a noose. His hands show rope burns. He fought hard. He's wearing a Columbia University sweatshirt, and pinned to his chest is a note in crude handwriting, "Coloreds know your place." Walsh finds the victim's wallet, student ID, Thomas Johnson. His partner asks the obvious question, "So we've got an ID, we notify the family?" Walsh's response, his uncle is Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. Both detectives go silent. They understand immediately what's about to happen.
Who was Thomas Johnson? Here's what you need to know about the victim. Thomas was 19 years old, first-year pre-law student at Columbia University. He wanted to become a civil rights attorney, fight injustice in courtrooms instead of on streets. His professors said he had one of the sharpest legal minds they'd seen in years. Every Sunday at 6 a.m., he walked through Marcus Garvey Park to get to church. Same route, same time. Someone had been watching. The partner asks Walsh, "What do we write in the report?" Walsh thinks about his oath, about justice, about everything he's supposed to represent. Then he thinks about reality. 5 white men lynched a black teenager. Even if he arrests them, even if he identifies them and brings charges, no jury in 1946 will convict them. The system will fail the way it always fails. Suicide, Walsh says finally. We write suicide. Now, before we continue, I want you to understand something. Between 1877 and 1950, over 4,000 documented lynchings occurred in America. Most people think this only happened in the South. They're wrong. Secret KKK cells operated in New York, Chicago, Boston, northern cities where lynchings were just as real, just as brutal, but far less documented. And when authorities labeled them suicides or accidents, justice became something families had to seek on their own.
If you're learning something right now, drop a comment. How many of you knew the KKK operated this actively in New York? Let's talk about it. 7:12 a.m. Bumpy Johnson receives the phone call that changes everything. "Boss, it's Thomas, Ruth's boy. They found him in Marcus Garvey Park. He's gone." Bumpy doesn't respond. Can't. The phone feels heavy in his hand. How? They're saying suicide, but boss, there was a note, KKK. Bumpy hangs up without another word. Bumpy goes to his sister Ruth's apartment 4 blocks away. She's surrounded by neighbors trying to offer comfort, but comfort doesn't work when your only child has been murdered. Ruth looks up when Bumpy enters, her eyes destroyed by tears. "They took my baby." The police tell her it was suicide, that Thomas hung himself. "My boy would never," Ruth says. She knows the truth. Bumpy holds his sister while she cries, and for the first time in 20 years of running Harlem's underworld, he feels something he hasn't felt in decades: helplessness. His nephew is dead, and no amount of power, money, or influence can bring him back. but there's something he can do. "I'm going to handle this," Bumpy says quietly. Ruth looks at him. "Will it bring Thomas back?" "No." "Then what's the point?" Bumpy's response is simple. "The point is making sure no other mother in Harlem has to bury her son because some men in hoods thought they could terrorize us." Ruth is quiet for a long moment. Then, "Make them understand. Make them feel what I'm feeling." Bumpy returns to Marcus Garvey Park alone. The police have removed Thomas's body and cut down the rope, but they missed things.
Bumpy finds 5 cigarette butts on the ground, different brands, smoked while waiting. 5 different shoe prints in the dirt, work boots, factory workers probably. A button torn off during the struggle. And something critical, a matchbook from Allie's Tavern on East 96th Street, outside Harlem in a white neighborhood. Then Bumpy finds someone the police overlooked entirely. Curtis, an elderly homeless man who sleeps on a park bench most nights, the kind of person people look through, invisible. Bumpy sits next to him. "Curtis, tell me what you saw this morning." Curtis saw 5 white men arrive around 5:30 a.m. before sunrise. They sat by the trees smoking, waiting. He heard them talking, laughing about teaching an uppity Colombian Negro a lesson. Did you hear names? Just one, the tall one with dark hair. Others called him Danny. Danny what? Didn't catch a last name, but I heard where they were going after. Allie's Tavern. Said they always celebrated there after their work. Bumpy hands Curtis $200. You never saw anything. Understand? Bumpy makes a call to a bartender who owes him favors. 3 hours later, the bartender calls back with everything. 5 men came into Allie's Tavern around 7:30 a.m., already drunk and loud, bragging about taking care of business in Harlem. Their names, Danny Morrison, Rick Sullivan, Lou Bennett, Frank Dorsey, and Charlie Ross. They're regulars? Yeah, come in every other Friday night, meet in the back room with about 10 other guys, real secretive. My boss says it's some kind of club. What kind of club? The bartender's voice drops, the kind that wears hoods. Pause for a second. In 1946, the KKK wasn't just burning crosses in Mississippi. They had organized cells in major northern cities, meeting in warehouses and basements, wearing respectable faces during the day and white hoods at night. These weren't outliers. These were mechanics, factory workers, store clerks, your neighbors. Hit that like button if you're still with me. This story gets intense, but it's important. Turn on notifications. We're covering the stories history tried to bury. By 8 p.m. on day 2, Bumpy has complete files on all 5 men, where they live, where they work, their families, their routines. He calls his 4 most trusted men to his office: Illinois Gordon, Willie Lee, James Quick Jackson, and Marcus Cole. 5 names, Bumpy says quietly. They took Thomas from us. Now we take everything from them. Here's what you need to understand about what happened next. I'm not going to glorify violence or give you graphic details, but I am going to tell you the truth about what happened when a community decided that if the law wouldn't deliver justice, they would.
Danny Morrison worked at an auto repair shop, lived alone. On September 17th, 3 men entered his garage while he was working on his car. They restrained him using the same type of rope Danny had used on Thomas. Danny was found the next day. The death was ruled consistent with the note pinned to his chest. 1 down. You knew your place. Now you're in it. Rick Sullivan came home from his factory job, went to his garage to fix a lawnmower. He didn't notice that someone had been inside earlier. Didn't notice his emergency window had been sealed shut. A fire started. Rick managed to break through the door but suffered severe burns covering most of his body. He survived, but his life as he knew it was over. The fire department found a note outside. 2 down. You burned crosses to terrorize families. Now you know how fire feels. Lou Bennett was a hunter who loved the outdoors. After hearing what happened to Danny and Rick, he drove 3 hours upstate to a remote trail, thinking he'd be safe in the wilderness. For 3 days, Lou wandered those woods while unseen watchers followed at a distance, making sounds, leaving signs, never letting him rest or feel safe. Search parties found Lou on September 22nd, wandering in circles, severely dehydrated and psychologically broken. He would spend the next year in psychiatric care. In his hand, 3 down. You hunted a boy like an animal. Now you know what it feels like to be prey. Frank Dorsey moved his family to a hotel thinking they'd be safer. On September 20th at 2 a.m., his house caught fire. Professional arson. Gasoline poured around the foundation, windows broken to feed oxygen to the flames. Everything Frank owned, every photograph, every memory, gone. Note on the mailbox, 4 down. You destroyed a family's future. Now you understand loss. Charlie Ross was the only one left. He'd watched 4 friends destroyed in 6 days. He decided to turn himself in, drive to the police station and confess everything. 3 blocks from the precinct, a car boxed him in. Illinois Gordon stepped out, walked to Charlie's window, knocked. Charlie understood immediately what was happening. Gordon gave him a choice. You're going to the warehouse on 98th Street. You're going to tell your KKK friends they have one option: disband and leave New York, or face what your friends faced. They'll never leave, Charlie said. Then they'll burn.
That night at 9 p.m., 15 men gathered at the warehouse, the full KKK cell. Charlie told them everything about Danny, Rick, Lou, Frank, about the ultimatum. They voted. 10 voted to stay and fight. 5, including Charlie, voted to leave. The 5 who voted to leave walked out immediately. Charlie drove straight to the bus station and left New York forever. The 10 who stayed died when the warehouse caught fire later that night. Official cause: accidental fire, likely from improper storage of flammable materials. The investigation closed within 48 hours. No suspects, no charges. Now, here is where I need you to think critically. Was this justice or was this revenge? When the police call a lynching a suicide, when the courts won't prosecute, when the system fails completely, what are the options? I'm not telling you what to think. I'm asking you to consider it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Where's the line between justice and revenge? Over 3,000 people attended Thomas Johnson's funeral at Abyssinian Baptist Church. Ruth insisted the casket be closed. She wanted people to remember Thomas alive, smiling, full of promise. Bumpy stood next to his sister throughout the service, silent. His face showed nothing, but his eyes carried a weight nobody else could see. As the casket was lowered, Bumpy placed a note on top. Thomas, they paid, all of them, every man who touched you. Harlem delivered justice. Rest easy, nephew. Your mother is safe. Your neighborhood is safe. Nobody will do this again. I promise. Uncle Bumpy. Ruth put her hand on Bumpy's arm. Is it over? It's over. Did they understand? Did they feel what I felt? Bumpy looked at his sister. Every single one of them understands loss now. Ruth nodded. Good. She placed a flower on the casket. My baby wanted to be a lawyer, wanted to fight injustice in courtrooms. I know. But the courtrooms failed him. The police failed him. The system failed him. I know. Ruth looked at Bumpy. So you became his justice. Yes. Thank you. Here's what happened after September 1946. The KKK never operated in Harlem again, not once in the next 17 years. The remaining KKK members in New York, the ones who weren't at that warehouse, disbanded immediately, burned their robes, destroyed their records, disappeared into normal life.
The message had been received. Harlem protects its own.
17 years later, a reporter asked Bumpy Johnson about Thomas in September 1946. Bumpy was 61 years old by then, still sharp, but tired in ways that youth never understands. Mr. Johnson, rumors persist that you were responsible for the deaths in attacks on 12 men in September 1946, men allegedly connected to your nephew's death. Would you care to comment? Bumpy's response: my nephew wanted to be a lawyer, wanted to fight injustice through the legal system. He believed in courtrooms, in judges, in the law. And you? I believed in the law too, until the law called my nephew's lynching a suicide, until the police filed it away and did nothing, until the system that Thomas believed in failed him completely. So you took justice into your own hands? I didn't take anything. Justice was owed. The courts wouldn't deliver it, so it came from somewhere else. But doesn't that make you just as bad as— Bumpy cut him off. As who? As the men who lynched a 19-year-old for being black and educated? As the police who covered it up? As a system that's been failing black families since this country was founded? The reporter was quiet. You want to know if I regret it? Bumpy continued. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that in 1946, 1 year after we fought a war against fascism overseas, we still had to fight terrorism here at home. I regret that my nephew died believing the system would protect him. But the men who died got exactly what they gave. That's not revenge, that's balance. Bumpy stood up. The interview was over. One more thing, he said at the door. After September 1946, the KKK never operated in Harlem again, not once in 17 years. You know why? Because sometimes the only thing that stops terror is the certainty that terror will be answered. The reporter never published that interview, but the story lived on, passed through Harlem like legend, like warning, like promise. Thomas Johnson wanted to be a lawyer. He wanted to fight injustice in courtrooms, to use the legal system to protect his community. But on September 15, 1946, that system failed him completely. What happened next wasn't about glorifying violence. It was about what communities do when the institutions designed to protect them actively work against them instead. Was it justice? Was it revenge? Was it necessary? I'll let you decide. But here are the facts. After September 1946, the KKK abandoned Harlem. One act of hatred triggered a response so complete, so calculated, that it changed the power dynamics of an entire neighborhood. Thomas Johnson, 1927-1946. The lawyer Harlem never got. The reason the KKK never— If this story made you think differently about justice, about history, about what happens when systems fail, subscribe to this channel. We're not here to tell you comfortable lies. We're here to tell you the uncomfortable truths that history tried to bury. Drop a comment. When the law fails, what are the options? Where's the line? Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear this story. And turn on notifications, because we're bringing you more untold stories, the moments that didn't make it into your history books, the times when communities had to protect themselves because nobody else would. Thomas Johnson's story isn't just about 1946. It's about every time the system fails and people have to decide what justice really means. Rest in power, Thomas. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.